and your father kept being like, "Are you just mourning One Piece?" Because apparently I was sitting on the chair going,
What's up, YouTube, and welcome to Manga, a book club series where me, Drock, and my mom, Mama Drock,
Hi!
We go through manga. We just finished One Piece, my favorite series of all time, and now we decided to do one that I have no experience with, our literal first time sharing our thoughts about the series. We usually do like a little bit of phone calls ahead of time, get our ideas out there. This is going to be completely unhinged because we have no idea what each other think of the series so far. We are just jumping around with our first exposure to the first 31 chapters of Undead Unluck.
And we chose it because in the last one, even though I have thoughts and feelings about One Piece that are very big now, I wanted to do a series that when Drock and I went through, he wouldn't know what was going to happen prior to me.
Something where we get to make predictions together. I have no idea how to predict this series, by the way.
It's weird as hell.
The structure is unlike anything I've experienced.
It's like me. It's unhinged.
It is unhinged. It's so difficult to figure out what to do with the structure of this. Like, I'm pretty good at reading a narrative and having an idea of what the needs of the narrative are that need to be fulfilled and drawing conclusions from there by going, okay, what is the most expedient way to tie these threads together? Thinking, what answer many of these needs at once? Even in One Piece, you can do this fairly regularly. There's a lot of things you can predict by just thinking about narrative needs, narrative bids, and what can meet them. And Undead Unluck, I don't know where I am. I'm just running.
I got to tell you that at first when we started reading it, I was like, just depressed. I was unhappy because I was like, this isn't One Piece. And then I was like, none of these characters are One Piece characters. I miss One Piece. Why can't I read? I was pretty unfair. And then I was like, okay, I need to read this and be less of a pissy jerk and move my way through. I grew up and I stopped and was like, I gotta read this in the way that it deserves to be read. So I have to read this not as somebody who's mourning being caught up to One Piece, but as somebody who is finding a whole new manga and deciding if they like the manga genre. Because all I knew is that I liked One Piece. I didn't know if I liked manga.
It's like how you don't have to be a country fan for there to be a country song you like.
Yeah, exactly. And I was actually kind of terrified that I was going to be a person who didn't like manga and only liked One Piece. And I was like,
there's no world where that's true. The issue is the manga that I know you'll like are obviously, because I know about them, ones I've read, which are not what you want for this series.
Oh, it's important to me that we're doing something for the first time together this time. I reminded myself that every time I finish a book that I adore, at the end of the book, I feel like no other book is going to book that hard again, and I don't want to read anything, and it puts you into book slump. So we started with One Piece, which is arguably one of the greatest manga of all time. And so I just decided, like, okay, I got to read this in a very different way. And as soon as I decided that, I mean, pretty quickly, he puts his hand around her boobs and grabs her naked boobies. And I was like, are you shitting me right now? But then I held back because she got angry enough at him. And
this has the pervy anime humor that I'm used to, but something about the way it rolls with it comes across less garish and upsetting, right?
Yeah, and I think it's because she feels like she has so much more agency as a person than lots of times I found female characters do.
Why I think she has so much agency is the story starts with her literally choosing to end her own life so that she doesn't cause more suffering against her control.
Yes.
And so much of the story, early on at least, is about her learning how to negotiate feelings to control the thing that took her agency away. It feels like the mangaka is more aware of the implications of the pervy humor, and it makes it more okay. There's more awareness to it, for sure.
It's not just that, she talks about it. Like in a lot of the manga, the perviness happens, and it's something that every once in a while, like one of the characters might be like, you're a jerk, and it's a one-liner where she's like, quit acting like that, you disgusting perv. She holds that accountable again and again. And I think that makes a huge difference, that the main female protagonist isn't like, you shouldn't do that, and then just pretends it never occurred. She continues to hold him accountable to his actions. And so you feel more like when that pervy shit happens, that you're like, I know that she will call him out again.
I think there's also something so important about it really, really important about the writing that I'm just kind of realizing how well these themes click together, like how expertly laser sawed these puzzle pieces are, that you are forced to write the series in a way that you're going to be more okay with the groping, because he wants to die as his mission. He can only die if her powers are at their zenith, and they can only be there if she likes him. So he is forced to step out of his haha, I'm a goofy bastard who's lived 1,000 years attitude and go into, okay, how am I a good enough person that she likes me? And now you see, like, it was never pervy for him, but it was still using her body and realizing, well, that's not an okay way to do it, and becoming like more of a nice guy because of this need to make her like him.
And then on top of it, he's open and honest about why he's doing it, which immediately makes him also kind of suck. So there's a really good juxtaposition in his character development. And I think that makes it more fun.
I really like that balance there. Him having to make her like him is why he has this bit of character arc we can track, and why he's forced to step out of uncaring bastard jumping around doing whatever zany bullshit he wants.
And then at the same time, just like anything else, inevitably he's going to fall for her in a huge way while he is trying to make her fall for him. But I like that he has a juxtaposition of character, not only in that he has a duality of when he has the card in his head and when he doesn't have the card in his head, which we'll get into, but also in that he's fully saying, I'm going to make it so that you fall in love with me, and I'm going to be a big enough person for that. But at the same time, I'm going to be that person so that you will fall in love with me, so the unluck will be large enough to actually end my life.
So someone's saying that made me sad because the moment that they fall for each other is the moment he dies. And I think there's something to that that's a little bit poignant, though, that like he's trying to die, and there's this thought that like life is made worth living by loving and being loved, that he is only allowed to die when he has lived a life worth living. That's kind of beautiful. I kind of like that. That's a little bit sweet.
But also, they're already talking about finding ways that they can undo everything that has been done.
Yep.
In which case, he would maybe be able to be the person that he is, live a normal lifespan with her, and they would be able to have their time together.
I do not think it's going to end with a double Minecrafting. No, I don't think that's going to be happening, because I think they're going to find an alternate way around. But I think like whether or not that's how it's going to happen, the setup of what they think is going to happen still has a great deal of weight in the series.
Yeah, I would agree. So I think for anyone who's just coming in for the first time, if you started reading Undead Unluck and you were like, yeah, I don't think so, I would suggest that you get to chapter 32. We're not there yet, but I know that I'm going to start to super love it from there, because when we got to chapter 31, I was like, as we were reading, I was getting more and more involved and thinking like, okay, I think I'm going to really, really enjoy this. But I think that it's going to end up being incredibly interesting, because I already have a theory of something that I think is going to occur. I could be super wrong. I hope I'm not, because I think it would be wicked. But give it a chance. Get past 32 before you make any decisions, I'd say. Right away in this, they start to get chased by a group. You don't really know who they are in the beginning, the Union, or as I called them, the Onion, because everything was I was like, well, now there's layers. You peel back all the different things about this that you might know or not know, and there's subterfuge within the layers. So it's the Onion. For those of you who are reading it like normal people, it's the Union. For those of you who are not, for those of you who are also unhinged, it's the Onion.
You know what?
And I was like, it's way better.
Point chat has, make sure to be part of a union. Organized labor is how we kill God. Anyways.
And at first, when you're looking at it and they're running away from the Union, and oh wait, before we move on, I do want to talk about this one little part that didn't seem like a huge big deal, but I guarantee it warmed the hearts and souls of all people who really like this manga. You're in chapter 1. He's done his pervy shit and held her boobies, because just in case you're new here, touching her actual skin, and especially the more intimate, the more love she has for you, the more likely you are to have a bigger backlash of unluck.
Her ratio of care and physical contact,
because she doesn't want anyone to touch her and have this unluck. She takes off her hat, and
being main character who at this point doesn't have a name.
She has no name. She's nameless.
Fuko has a name.
He takes off her toque, and for Americans, that's what you call a beanie. But in Canada, that is called a toque, and I will live and die by toque forever. It's a better word. And out spills fills all this damn hair, like so much hair. And he's like, he likes it. He thinks it's great. And she's all upset about it. And he's like, don't touch me and you're going to get hurt. And he said, you've never been able to go to a stylist before? And she's like, yeah, and I don't want this. And he's like, okay. And he cuts her hair for her. And it's just this sweet moment when he sees how much this upsets her, how much this isn't a thing she wanted to have, but she never felt like she could go to a hairdresser since she discovered her powers because she didn't want her unlucky powers hurting anyone. And he takes a moment to cut her hair for it. And it doesn't feel like he's trying to do it to make her love him, because it's almost like he forgets in that moment that that's his goal. He just sees a need within her. And the need is so strong that he just immediately falls into like, I can help you fix that. And he cuts her hair for her and she feels this great sense of release and uncluttered and unfettered from all this hair. And immediately she's like, oh, thank you. And I just I knew as soon as I read this part, okay, you know what? I think I can get into this. And immediately after that happens, then the Onion shows up. And we hate the Onion, and the Onion is the worst at this point. And we're like, oh, we're going to be running from the Onion forever. Spoiler alert.
No. Not that. That's not what's happening.
But you're sure it's what's going to happen at this point. You're like, that's it. But it's also where we discover for the first time, like you're coming into this thing and you realize that is going to be a thing that exists for everyone. You've got undead and unluck, but it turns out that the Onion is also filled with their own uns. And then you start to wonder to yourself, holy shit, who are all the uns going to be and why do the uns exist and who put the uns here? And it's a puzzle that hits you in the face so hard. I love that there's a mystery in here, and I love that I'm immediately asking myself, who are going to be all the uns? Why do we need uns? Who put the uns here? Why don't we want them? Like the mystery of that immediately made me be like, I'm going to enjoy the shit out of deciphering all this. What did you think up until this point? Were you as touched as I was by the haircutting moment?
The haircutting scene got to me. It was very, very nice. I was also immediately kind of enamored with the creative way the power system was used, with the idea of like Mr. Zombie, later to have a name, being used like a bad luck grenade. I thought was hilarious. I really, really loved the full stretch of fight scene where they killed the first member of the Onion. I felt like the decisions there were so clever, like how it was written. And then later how it ties into them observing by seeing, okay, we could see your unluck using the environment around you to a certain extent, but needing to pull down an asteroid when there wasn't an option.
Something that I found really cool about this, immediately they're thinking of the most incredible ways for her unluck to become an actual weapon. And I can see that we're going to have a lot of refining of how do you turn unluck into a weapon. And the beautiful thing about it is she's a dichotomy of being absolutely kind and loving in a true way, not needing to be, there's no fakery in her empathy and caring. And yet the thing about her is her touching you would bring you devastation. So the way in which she's pulling back. So I think it's going to be so cool to watch the way they continue to use her unlock power, which in itself wouldn't be really weapony, would just be a burden, and instead they're turning it into this like cool, awesome weapon.
I agree. I really like the kind of transformation there that we're being promised. People are giving a lot of like comparisons, but I think honestly, to me, a lot of these only feel half accurate, and I think it shows that the author's done a great job at taking their inspirations and adapting them in a really creative way, and it does sort of feel wholly fresh to me.
It really does feel fresh, even though it's totally One Piece coded. And even though you can tell that this person was like, I like the way these people use their powers, and I'm going to create a system in which using powers of uns is a challenge. Because there is no power that anyone has had so far where you're like, well, you could obviously just do this. Like none of them.
Zombie Man him, but even his power is pushed well beyond what you would assume of it.
He's not a zombie. He's very clear about that.
I'm sorry, but until we get to the point where he has a name, he's Zombie Man.
He's not a zombie. He's undead. He's even got that great, awesome tattoo that tells you so.
I'm just going to real quick take a look at something. It's called the Monster Manual, if I can.
I'm going to bite your nose off, and I'm going to say, Ganap.
We're bringing the Smurfs back, huh?
Whenever you can bring Smurfs in, you should bring Smurfs in. That is just a fact. How does undead stay on him, and how does the number stay on him, and what is the number for? Is the number related to like a thing he needs to remember, blah, blah, blah. One of the things I like about him is that he continues to think when pulling off his head. He uses all of his body as a weapon. So he's like, oh, I can shoot my fingers if I bite them. So they're kind of on, but kind of not. And then I can shoot them out. That one was kind of pushing it for me. But it's still super fun that he's like, I don't need that body. I can pull my head off and make my body chuck my head. One of my favorite panels is when he goes, I can't say I've ever taken a meteorite to the face until now. Just like, oh, and everyone should be aware that in the first few chapters, dude is super naked pretty much all the time because what clothes could he wear? So they just have a weird rectangle blur over his genital area. General genitals.
Solution. Genital.
The genital area.
I have a qualm with the series that I want to bring up now.
Give her.
So at this point, Zombie Man is given a name. She names him Andy.
Andy.
Andy and Fuko.
And he is Handy.
Dear God. So here's the one qualm I have. I don't love looking at Andy's face a lot of the time.
Why? Is it because of the thing coming out of his forehead?
It's because of his weird big smile that he's doing all the time. He kind of looks like Jim Carrey's The Mask.
That's interesting. All I see is like Smoker's Family or like a young smoker. What was the name of the dude? You don't know, so you shouldn't bother trying because you're not Gen X. He was just a head and he was on like a music video show and he did all the music videos when I was a kid, and then somebody saw him and they put him in like, yes, Max Headroom. Thank you. He looks like Smoker and Max Headroom had a baby and now it's Andy.
Huh. I'm sure it'll grow on me or the art style will soften slightly, as often is the case with mangakas. But at the moment, I just look at his face and I'm like, eh.
I thought he seemed very simple until a moment. We'll get there. So I started to wonder, like, how does he keep the tattoos on his body when he's constantly changing? I wondered if the tattoos were connected to a soul and not to the person, like if they actually...
I like the suggestion from chat that they could be tied to an ability, but wait, chat might be telling us real things. I just realized.
Chat, don't tell us. I was like, are they tied to who he is? Are they tied at a soul level? Are they tied to a different part of him? I thought it was really cool when they head off and I'm like, oh, they're going to be doing all these interesting adventures of this and this and this. And then the sky splits, because having just finished One Piece over like less than a year, every time something happens that is One Piece coded, I get so excited. So when the sky split open, I started to think about the way that the sky could be rendered in One Piece world, and it's almost like this sky is, what's it called, Matrix, and that this is all a video game and the Matrix control power has cracked open the sky, so then it's a Matrix combined with like a One Piece ideal, and then boom, something comes from the sky, the onion comes down to attack them because they need to take them out. Yeah, baby.
Why do you need to take us out? Well, I mean, think about it. You are a walking nuke. Weren't you trying to die yesterday?
If anything, Fuko, I think you know why you need to die.
You were trying to kill yourself for the same reason we're trying to kill you. We are in alignment here.
And so I was like, well, she really seemed to have changed her mind quite quickly. Is it the haircut?
People who Minecraft themselves and are stopped often don't Minecraft themselves again. It's either that or they do it really often.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that when they come to attack them again, when the onion comes down the next time, I was like, damn, the onion is coming just like again and again. And I actually said out loud to myself, this is going to get boring. Are we just going to be running from the onion and the onion is going to jump on down every 5.5 freaking seconds and attack the shit out of us? I'm going to get so bored with this. So I was ever so happy to see that that is not the direction that we were going to go into.
No, not at all. There's like a fight. They kill a guy. Now there's a seat available.
Yeah. So the Union/Onion, they have a squad and they're allowed a certain number of members at a time. They sit around a round table like Knights of the Round Table. And there was a seat available because they made it available through killing somebody. And so they found out that if they both wanted to be in the Onion and both got to be a part of this, they needed to make another seat come available. When I looked at that round table, I was like, yeah, there's Knights of the Round Table coded in here and that's pretty cool. And then I think that maybe it can be each one of the seats at the table could be a different yokai.
Yokai?
That there can be 12 of them, but it could be up to 13, I think this said, but there could be for sure 12. And then each one, like Kappa is 12 a.m., mischievous, dangerous, known for luring people to a watery grave. Uriah is 1 a.m. So there's like a type of yokai for each part of the clock that people can go on. So when I saw that they not only made a round table for the onion, they also made it be times, I was like, well, then weren't we, when we got into One Piece, didn't we find out that different times denoted different things, which is why we had that tattoo or the drawing as a way of meeting up with people? And so I was like, if that was true, then wouldn't it be possible that this person would take it kind of to the next level and that they could say that each person who sits around this table is a different yokai for a different time on this clock? And then each one of them could represent a certain force, because there's going to be a whole bunch of different things in here, like 7 deadly sins type shit. She might go Western in some aspects of it and be like, you know, a little more, I don't know, Greek or Roman in it. And that you could assume Zodiac. But in all honesty, that was what I connected. In all honesty, the thing is that there's actually 13 months and 1 month was pulled out because there's 13 moons a year, not 12. And one was pulled out. But I figured if we were doing it not by months, but by time, it would make more sense for it to be 12. But there could also be a center thing, because I also thought that Luffy was a center thing, so the 13th could be something like that. So it is possible that it could use like the Japanese system of each time meaning some kind of a different thing. So that's something I wanted to keep an eye on.
It is crazy to be on the bus with you when you're doing that.
Like, zodiacs make sense, except for the fact that literally we used to have 13 symbols within the zodiac, not 12, because there are 13 moons. So for me, it could also be yokai. And why wouldn't it be? I mean, it's got Japaneseness to it, but then again, they do decide to do the whole world in English, which that was clever as shit, eh?
I think that's interesting. Okay, so I want to get this. I think we should touch on Gina. Well, first of all, I'm drawing her, and second of all, that happens before we learn all this, and then we can talk about the onion and what they're like.
So they decide to kill one more person, and he thinks he knows where to find a person.
And this goes into more of why I feel like this author I relate to on such a deep level. Lake Baikal is also a place I'm obsessed with. If I were to come up with a random place people needed to go, Lake Baikal is so rad. Did you know it has its own species of seals? It is a lush world of dolphins and seals and geothermal vents, and it is an ocean. It is a lake that's an ocean, and it all stays alive in the winter under the ice.
Jelly Gremlin says the sky has no stars, which confirms it's not our world, but that's not true, because as things are added for them, that becomes canon, and nobody remembers what it was like before. Get into that in a minute, because we're moving all around too much.
Yeah,
okay, go off.
So they decide to go to Russia. I just want to say, I love so much the joke when Andy's like, we're going to Russia, vodka, vodka. Wait, how old are you? 18. That's legal drinking age there. Vodka. I have no like deep observation. I just love that joke.
Okay, do your thing. You get to talk about her because you chose the, hey everyone, this is a big week for Drock.
Is this?
Yeah. You got to choose the image for the first time ever.
Yeah, we're taking turns picking images, and I picked Gina.
Drock was like, you could choose the image first. And I was like, no, dude, I've been choosing the image for almost a year now. It's your turn. So this is Drock's image that he got to choose, which is pretty cool because you get to choose what you draw. Okay, talk to us about her. So they go off to Lake Baikal, which you're obsessed with. They're in Russia. I just want to say, before you go to the part about her and have a conversation about her, I liked, what chapter do we meet her, by the way?
5. People are saying Drock would like Gina. I need to be clear. Y'all don't know how to read my type. I just thought this image of the water lifting up was so cool.
Except for you do like girls who are very not good.
It's not like every time a woman is evil, I'm like, wow, that's hot. No. It's very specific vibes.
Okay, so when she meets Gina and she goes, are you a Yamato Nachiko? I started to think about Yamato, and I talked to somebody and I was like, what is that? Because it says here the personification of an idealized Japanese woman. But when I looked it up, because they were like, no, Yamato also means, if it has a different ending, an idealized Japanese man. So if you didn't put an ending to that, because you have to choose to put an ending on Yamato, if it's an ideal... Obviously, if you do a Yamato with a Nadeshiko at the end, it's an idealized Japanese woman. If you do it with a different ending, it's an idealized Japanese man. And if you choose to just do Yamato, then it's ambiguous. It's like an idealized Japanese person, but it isn't even. So him choosing to make Yamato's name Yamato and have that controversy because they choose to be a man, and now people are like, is it actually a man? And he's left off an ending on that, makes it so interesting. He knew exactly what he was doing. When I realized that he had chosen the name Yamato for them, and it's something that's usually followed by a male or a female ending, I was like, damn, man, you have so outdone yourself with creating ambiguity in that character. You knew what you were doing. Anyway, go on.
We were at Gina. So Gina
That is Gina.
She is unchanged, right? That was her title?
Yeah.
And she detests the concept of change. She wishes things could stay the same. We are introduced to her, like you said, asking Fuko what kind of Japanese girl she is because she's obsessed with Japanese culture. She's a little weeb. Now, we get into something really interesting here, which is Fuko paints a portrait of the sky that has stars in it. Why does Fuko have memories of the world as it was, or as it will be, or our world? Why does she have those memories?
Yeah, so people who are watching this and are YouTubey, if you haven't watched it before and you're thinking about reading along with us, the Earth can change, and when the Earth changes, usually in the Onion is where we see it, then everybody gets a new memory, and it's as if it's always existed. And currently, there is no stars in the sky when people look up in the night sky, just a moon. Okay, carry on.
Someone else said, yeah, that Victor mentions days of the week and it hadn't been added. Interesting. Yeah, it's the author telling us the world is different without it being heavy-handed. Yeah,
Fuko painted it.
Fuko knew what the world is or was or would be like. That to me feels like there's something to that, and I don't know what to make of that, but it feels like one of those things that's intentional. She says that she just thought the moon was lonely, but I'm not buying it, okay?
Yeah, I also said to myself, is it possible that if this was a game, she'd been rebooted and she had a memory type thing going on? Because I wasn't convinced this wasn't like a game version of the world and they were rebuilding it, and that a god is someone like you and I, but not you and I because we don't design games. Yeah, but a programmer.
Uns being like these weird like bug fixes to the rules. Interesting.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, then these would be bugs inside of a computer generated game.
Trying to kill the coder. Ooh.
Exactly.
Ooh, okay. Let me think about this. I have a superpower that can help me predict things here, I'm realizing, which is it is possible that this could be a simulation because I would also do that.
There's so many things it could be right now. We're in a very could be place, but I like the idea. That was another one of the ideas that I really enjoy. The thing that I liked about them is I did like her immediately. Like, even though I think that she is kind of an asshat because of her being kind of an asshat, I still really liked her. I was like, she's an interesting character. You can tell that she has humanity to her, but I also knew immediately. I was like, oh, this chick ain't good. This chick's bad news,
the lady
for sure.
was like, I like Japanese culture. Let's talk. Oh, this is the one we're gonna kill. Yeah,
and you're like, oh, that's not good. That's not good.
You're gonna die. Sorry, girl.
Let's not get attached to this one in any way, shape, or form.
I loved the strategy of having to use his blood on the bubble to like hide what was happening and then kill her by sending his head into the bubble so the bad luck had to get through. And then it's like, hey, miss, the giant barrier penetrating laser is charged up for some reason.
Exactly. So she is so cool, but on the other hand, her weird obsession with Andy, I was like, ugh. Oh, dude, I'm sad for you. You're gonna need to take down the stalking by like 100%.
Too obsessive. It's uncomfortable.
Oh my god! Did you see what the chapter title of chapter 6 was? I almost snorted my console down. You haven't changed at all.
How is there a UFO when there's no space? Actually, that doesn't quite line up either.
No. Stick there first, because if you are a Mum Piece person, you know that a chapter being titled "You Haven't Changed at All" is hilarious for me.
Oh god, you're right. You were so entertaining when I tortured you all those years ago. Now I'm in love with you.
Exactly. That's what upset me about it. Because I was like, are you freaking kidding me? You tortured this dude. You made his life a living freaking hell. You hurt him. You made him sad. You belittled him. But yeah, for sure. Pop off about your love.
Yeah.
Okay, go on.
Okay. The end result of this is they kill Gina and they get to become part of the Onion.
I think that was a really interesting thing because you at first see the Onion as being this shitty group, and she's like, look, I've been a part of it. Her speech upon dying was stunning. That she talked about, I thought I could make change too, but not wanting to have change. Like at the same time she said she is unchanged, she admitted that she wanted to change things, which is so interesting to have somebody who's all about not changing as their power. And yet she was just open about the fact that she knew shit was bad and it needed to change. And I think one of the reasons that she couldn't see it through, that she might have not thought of, is that because she's the opposite of change. So of course it isn't, because she just talks about how when she's in it, she thought she could make all these things happen, and she had an idealized version as well about how they could help, but all that happens is she gets sent out to kill other people like her. So for me, I was like, well, part of the reason I think that you can't do this, Gina, is because you're literally unchanged. So whether you wanted to do it or not isn't really that compelling.
It's like how whenever you point out social problems, anyone whose political goal is first and foremost on stability is always an obstacle to any significant and meaningful improvement to the world, because there is a necessary damage that comes with improvement. And if someone's first and foremost political agenda is stability before anything else, they are incapable of accepting the necessity of that cost.
That's exactly it. I want to skip to chapter 10 while bringing some stuff up. So when we meet the Onion, as happens, some people like them, some people don't. Mostly just all don't like them. Oh, we can't skip to chapter 10 because when do we meet the Apocalypse? Chapter 9 or 8? Okay, it's chapter 9. We've got to go to chapter 9. So when you go to chapter 9, this is where I started to think that each one of the sections of the table could represent a yokai, because when I looked at the personalities of each of the people in the different parts of the table, I was like, I think it'll be interesting that as we go, we may find that they align with something like the evils of things or the good and the bad of the world. And then I was like, what if they're all just yokai? The kind of the way that they represent a time on the clock would make more sense than representing a season or a month, because it doesn't make sense. This looks like what you would put down as a sundial that would tell time, the way their table is done. And there's this weird thing in the middle of the table called the Apocalypse, and when it's standing upright, it looks like the thing on a sundial. And I was like, it would be interesting then if each one of them represented a time, and if we attach that to Japanese thinking, they could also represent an aspect of what that time is like, or something from that time. That's why I started to think about that.
I thought more of the representing time is like the sundial with a thing named Apocalypse is just a symbol of a doomsday clock. But But
I think things can represent more than one thing. As I've always said, things don't need to be one thing. I like that the thing that represents the Apocalypse is a book-like thing, because I think it's very interesting that knowledge is power. So I like this idea of them using a book, which is always suggested to be the centering of knowledge or the keeping of knowledge. And then this book suddenly turns itself into this big teeth, giant-eyed, scary apocalypse thing. And it gives them quests. So it'll say there are 6 quests this time. Blah. Capture the Uma bird. And it'll name off all these quests. And then they're supposed to pick which quests they're going to do, who's going to do the quest, and everything comes at a cost. So you either get a reward or a cost is going to happen to you. And the costs are horrifying for not fulfilling.
Fundamentally introduce a new Uma, and Umas are these forces that represent an aspect of reality that didn't previously exist and added into being. And there's this implication that things like, well, we know that galaxies didn't exist, so stars didn't exist. Uma Galaxy is only introduced to jump ahead when they fail.
Doesn't it say new galaxy? I was thinking that imparted that perhaps there was galaxies.
No, it's saying like new Uma, and it's like the concept of galaxies was added because...
Okay, so the concept of galaxies.
Yeah,
okay.
And they imply that, like, tragically enough, the only one I can for sure remember was sex, but there was a bunch of them where they imply these things didn't exist previously and
I really like that the one that your mind is stuck to is fornication.
Look, that was a shocking one to have be this didn't used to exist, because I was like, how did people just like show up?
This is one of the neatest things I've seen an author do, that I think when we were talking about how unique this feels, this author has these things called umas. The world is a certain way, and if the quests are not all fulfilled by a certain date, then a penalty is given by this book of
race,
evilness.
Death, sickness, and language were the other ones.
Yeah, penalty is given. Gender. And as soon as the penalty is given, it's as if it always exists. Every person that lives on the earth believes that has always existed from that moment on.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a wildly cool concept that I've never seen before in writing, I don't think. Who's Nico?
I have no idea.
Nico is the scientist. I remember thinking like, very interesting that the author chose to make Nico kind of like as in Nico Robin, the person who has all the information. I thought that was kind of an interesting idea. Kind of cool. But what I really enjoyed about this is as they're trying to go through with everything, I started to think about how cool it was that they did it this way, because all of the things that I said, well, this couldn't be our world because it didn't have this, or this couldn't be our world because it didn't do that. As soon as they introduced the idea of the Uma, how you could add things to the world and all of us would believe it had always been that way, that it now can be our world. Because you and everyone else would not be aware that things had been any other way, and we would have the whole history of that concept always existing. So I thought that was a really cool way of getting around feeling like we didn't belong in this world and making us feel more connected to it.
Yeah, it's such a weird concept. I am always hesitant when stories introduce things that are too big too easily. I think that if your story is about big things, it is your obligation to build towards them in a way that they feel as big as they should. This being said, I think immediately there's leeway given here because it's a comedy, but I'm hesitant and curious to see if they can pull off how large the concepts being introduced are, because I think things this big and impactful being introduced so offhand, there's a narrative risk there to me. There is no guarantee of that being the right decision ever.
Yeah, I like that though. I like that risk.
I'm curious. I'm interested to see where it is. If you look at One Piece's lesson in this, I think the way that handles scale of like how important and huge and impactful things are is fantastic, because we are introduced the ceiling of power with Mihawk very early on, and that ceiling is respected somehow for the entire series. That's impressive with how quickly things get out of control in shonen storytelling a lot of the time.
Said to you, when we met Mihawk, I was like, how much bigger can we get than this? Like, we start here?
Yep, and it turns out not really. Like, how much bigger can we get? No. Starting with like, we're gonna kill God in chapter 9 is that huge, but also the concept of we can reintroduce, like, we can universalize language, etc., etc. Like, everything they introduce here is so phenomenally large that I feel like it had that risk of like, oh, this could devalue everything if not handled well.
And I was a little shocked that I'm reading this, and within the first 10 chapters, I've been told that the Onion's whole thing is, oh yeah, we're going to do all these things. And it seems like this thing here, the apocalypse, is working on behalf of God. But right in front of it, we're going to talk, like right in front of the thing that is being given to them by what you suppose is God. They're like, but let's actually just talk about how we're all just working towards killing God.
If we can do this long enough, we can gain enough power because we keep getting rewards that will kill God one day. So we're trying to tread water. How are you doing on treading water? Well, on a score out of 100, not very well.
Yeah, and I was like, dude, maybe don't talk in front of the apocalypse. Maybe just,
I mean, I feel like you gotta assume that God knows what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, you would assume that, but on the other hand, maybe keep some shit secret. I don't know. Be a little less suspicious. Don't get suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
This is a great deep cut joke for some people. If bourgeois rituals of bird consumption are anything to go by, it's really easy to hide from God. You just gotta put a towel over your head when you're doing all this.
Oh my God. Literally.
For you two people out there who understood my Orts Alone reference, I'm glad you're here.
So the creator, the God who resides on the other side of the book. So the God resides on the other side of the book. So the book is like a portal or what's the thing that I'm thinking of?
Magic circle.
No.
Door.
Ugh, no.
Bridge.
I'm talking about my theory in One Piece.
Dimension.
I like this idea that there's another dimension, that there's layered dimensions, and that God is in another dimension, and the way to get through that is on the other side of the book. I think that is very, very cool.
I'm so curious what killing God means and looks like and is. I'm also curious if we're going to have someone try before the time we eventually do it, because I would definitely rather that.
Yeah, I don't want to get to like wait the entire time and finally God and da 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 da. I hope we see God at some point. God seemed surprisingly average. Okay, I really like that we see these quiet moments where we're watching actual friendships get built. Not with Andy, of course, because Andy is his own thing. But watching all these quiet friendships is really wonderful. Like even with the people who are serving other people. How do you pronounce her name?
Which one?
Our main person.
Fuko.
It's just Fuko. Okay, my brain wanted to add something.
You were supposed to say fucko?
Dude, we don't say fucko on Twitch.
You're right. Crap.
It's Fuko. God damn it. I really, really, really love seeing the quiet moments that she has. I also love it because we continue to see it all the time, right? Like her little background flashbacks that we do of her being awesome and making friendships and finding out that it's through those friendships and those genuine times that she's had with other people that she's already bonded herself to all of these members, well, many of the members of the Onion, which leads to them actually having greater success. And I think that's kind of amazing that we get to see the power of those relationships because, I mean, that's very One Piece coded again. I mean, it's very narrative coded, but it is One Piece coded in that those friendships and the power, one of the quiet powers that she has, because there's overt powers, there's overt skills, and then there's quiet skills. And one of her quiet powered skills is that she makes genuine friendships happen really quickly. And people feel seen and appreciated by her. And then it means that there's a lot of helping going on, but there's also a lot of bonding. And bonding is what makes teams so beautiful.
I think that's very sweet and pretty.
Yeah, I really appreciated that work. So Andy is naked all the time. His junk is constantly swinging out of his pants. If you haven't read this yet, and I suggest you do, don't worry, because this dude escapes. Uma Close goes on to people. Its name is Clothy. And Clothy goes on to people and he becomes the thing they most want and it controls them, blah, blah, blah.
Ideal outfit or whatever.
Yeah, their idealized outfit. But when your idealized outfit is boring and or just nakedness and you're just like, whatever, instead, Clothy becomes the perfect way to finally cover up Andy's penis.
Well, because what he wanted was just unreasonable expectations that Clothy couldn't meet well enough to accommodate because Andy was like, you're telling me you want clothes that are completely unbreakable, that you can summon at will back onto your body, that regenerate? And then he does all that and is like, did I satisfy? Because if he does, he takes over or whatever. And Andy's like, I wasn't fast enough. I was naked for like 5 seconds.
Yeah, that's way, 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 way too slow. And oh, now there's a rip. Way to go. You suck. It was so well written by the author. I hope, and I'm going to One Piece a lot. And guys, you're just going to have to suck it up because my only other thing I have in manga is One Piece.
Well, which I hope is a fan of. So like, at least it's applicable here.
Just like Kazuki Toki has time travel abilities, and that's the only person that we're talking about who has time travel abilities. So obviously time travel and the ability to pull times together or whatever have more validity because otherwise we only talk about them one time and then it never happens again. That would be wild and insane. And so I hope that in this, that eventually his clothes actually become a problem again. Like I super hope that at some point we're sitting here and then the clothes do deliver on a promise. Oh my God, what if that's what kills him? That'd be amazing. No, it's not going to happen. But imagine. But anyways, I hope it becomes a problem at some point that the clothes actually meet his and he forgets and the clothes actually meet his expectations. And then they have to have a thing around it.
I hope instead of that, they become a solution because I love when you build up an arsenal of Monster of the Week that you've built up and then there's a problem that nobody knows how they're going to solve and just some random thing that you've collected throughout your magical journey you find a way to use to fix something.
Yeah, it can be either way. I don't care. They have to come back. Clothy either has to be a problem or a solution. He's already a solution, though. Like, we no longer have to look at...
he's a blanket solution. I want him to be used for something specific in the future.
That would be great. But currently, we don't have to look at his dingle-dongle anymore, and that is a nice solution. I'm pretty happy about that. No offense. Like, be naked when naked suits, but every 5 seconds? In their first thing...
Spoil.
What?
Wait, that's not an instruction, chat. I'm not instructing you. I'm just saying what the next villain is.
Go ahead.
That was it. Spoil.
Oh, I thought you were saying spoiler. In their next thing, they head off to an old Western town. And you know what my immediate thought on that was? Must have been so cool for this Japanese manga writer to get to do an old West town. Like, that must have been so freaking fun.
Can I just say, I think this Japanese manga writer doesn't understand how big countries that aren't Japan are.
No, I did have that feeling as well, but that's okay. It's like when people come to Canada and they're like, I'm going to go and see the East Coast and go to Toronto and Montreal and Quebec City. Then I'm going to go over and hang out on Vancouver Island. And you're like, are you?
Do you understand what you've signed up for?
That's cute. I traveled across Canada and it took 5 weeks.
People are saying there's an explanation for the Statue of Liberty being there, in which case...
Well, they did say that it was because it was a old Western town made for movies, didn't they?
Oh, so it's in New Jersey. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's in New Jersey and it was made for movies. Unless it's Vegas, and in that case, it's the fake Statue of Liberty, and that makes sense as well.
Oh, okay, so it's in Vegas. Well...
Okay, the spoiled dude touches things and they immediately start to unalive themselves and fall apart and decompose and rot. This had a really sweet take because even though we were in an actual zombie place, which I just wanted to point out is brilliant because remember how you were calling Andy zombie and how Fuko called Andy zombie? It was a brilliant idea to make the first thing that they worked against showing the difference between being undead and being a zombie.
Yeah.
A really important distinction because when you do that, you make sure that the reader is seeing Andy in a very specific way from this moment on. Because when you look at it, you're like, he's not a zombie. We saw what zombies look like within this plane of existence, and it ain't that. So when they're touched, when they get there, for some reason, just like Andy's tattoo that has his own number and then a thing that says undead, very the same as his tattoo that he has. They get a weird kind of tattoo looking thing on their stomachs that become the time limit of how long it is until they become unalived and they're now a zombie when they get into this old West town, which in the past the town had all been locked away, and then Andy decided the best way to handle getting into that town was to drive a 18-wheeler through the wall, thus letting everybody out and in and getting expiration dates on them.
When in Rome.
When in Rome? Anyways, they get in there and they meet this chick with a sunflower apron, and I thought the chick was all of 5 years old when we first met her. Andy is sitting there and suddenly agrees to marry her, and I'm like, well, that
felt like a woman to me for sure. Okay, I did not get this is a 5-year-old at all.
She felt way too small and young, and then I was like, oh, turns out he marries her. They attack things. She tells him what to attack. My whole dream was just wearing a wedding dress. Thank you for giving that to me. So she's enough of a not zombie that she has some cognizance. She's decomposing. She's icky. She says, now it's time for you to kill that thing, and points to this angel. So that's where we find out that the spoil is kept. Spoil is freaky as shit. It has a face similar to, what's the thing that Zaddy dude is in? That actor everyone calls Zaddy with the spore mushroom zombie dudes?
Last of Us?
Thank you. So it has a face similar to the Last of Us kind of face in the way that it opens up and eats people. You know? Ew. Yeah. You must have liked it. You like body horror when it has things like that.
Whoa. Mushrooms aren't plants.
Plants growing out of people and shit.
Plant-based body horror. Fungus aren't plants.
Oh, you only like plant-based. Why aren't you reading the secret manga I'm reading then?
Wild Strawberries? I probably should. It's absolutely my vibe.
It's a great manga. Everybody, read Wild Strawberries. It's really cool. You'll like it.
Talk about a theme that I'm noticing here, okay?
Go ahead.
We have Mr. Monkey Man with the big monkey staff, the Chinese guy.
I really love that's how you explained it. Yeah.
We have him reveal that not only Fuko's power, but his power comes from affection. And we also learn that Gina's power unchanged, that she loved the idea of things staying the same more and more. That was a thing that powered her. I think her power also came from love, and she needed to love the way things were to use her power, because she describes this love of unchanging. The negators seem to have, at least the ones who work externally, seem to have affection as a power source. And what I find very interesting about that is the Umas, at least one of them so far, has hope as a weakness.
Yes.
having hope and drive, desire, but hope more than anything is a weakness to the powers of this Uma. And I just think there's something interesting about the negators being powered by love and affection and like and kindness, and the Uma being defeated by hope directly. This is interesting, where I saw some comments about how this series isn't nearly as deep as One Piece, and I think that's fair in a lot of levels. The story's probably not as complex, but I think thematically this is very well thought out. I think there's some thematic structure to this.
Absolutely agree. I thought it was really weird, speaking of the dreams, that didn't she, like, Fuko take a moment to be like, as long as I have a dream, you can't take me away, or blah, blah, blah. Like, didn't she exactly One Piece it?
Yeah, she was like, I got my dream. What's your dream? Pretty dress.
Oh, that's not what it was. Ugh. Dang it, Druck! Weren't you, like, absolutely gobsmacked when the little preschool kids, one of them comes out with a gun? And he's like, you're just here to kill us because we're doomed to be zombies. Why else would outsiders be running down into these boonies? And I was like, this author is doing the United States so dirty.
I love it, honestly. Go.
It's so funny. Is that a preschooler holding a gun?
And he has the goddamn right to do it.
No. You do not hear an eagle noise. You think you hear an eagle noise, but that's actually a red-tailed hawk, because that is not the sound that eagles make. As a person who lives with eagles, I can tell you it's not their sound. But I do also live with red-tailed hawks, and guess what sound it is? Red-tailed hawk.
Yeah. Eagles are like...
USA! USA! America! Hell yeah! And you heard it here, kids. Just when you thought your life couldn't get any better, you hear shitty bird calls on the Druck Show.
Canada's made of birds.
I really live in Birdtopia. You can't even imagine the swirling constantly of the vultures over my house, which I must tell you can be disconcerting sometimes. A little unnerving, if you will.
Bird facts. All right, let's go back to the thing. Spoil! How do we defeat it? This is so powerful. How could we possibly beat it? What I say is, Andy's like, sorry guys, I gotta go sicko mode. And they pop the magic card out of his head.
Talk about the magic card first, because we haven't mentioned that he had a card in his head, really.
He pulled it out for a sec. He has a card shoved in his brain. He pulled it out for a sec, and he got sicko mode and some guys up really easily, because he was like, I may not know how to fight now, but I used to.
So this is really cool. Let's just stop for a second. So this card in Andy's head has been splitting his brain for making connections to old Andy.
Who is called Victor.
And it's a credit card? Well, that makes sense. And so when they pull the card out of his head, Andy goes from being like Super Saiyan looking with his cool blonde hair and his buff body, and suddenly he has dark, black, long hair and looks very, very different and is a completely different dude. What do you think about that?
I mean, look, transformations are name of the game in shonen manga. I'm fine with it. I'm gonna be real. I don't know if the design is working for me, but conceptually, I like the idea that, like, by nature he's this awful bastard. There's something kind of sad but also interesting to the idea that everyone likes and wants to preserve the brain damage version of this man.
You would call the capsule being inside of his head brain damaged, Andy?
Yeah, he's separated from his memories and he's been given a distinct personality caused by an injury to his brain.
I just think it's funny that he looks like he's Super Saiyan, like his hair looks Super Saiyan, except for like Super Saiyan mullet version, which was so perfect for America. Yet he is this dark and dangerous, uncaring, unfathomable human being. And I just like that inside of him, there is still a whole other person. So I didn't necessarily see it as brain damage, because internal Andy was having a battle with outside Andy once they pulled that thing out. So it was almost like there was two Andys, and by breaking a piece of the brain, or by putting a thing into the piece of the brain, it split it so that the second Andy didn't have an ability. So I almost wondered, is it the same man? Is there two spirits in this person? Why is the other Andy still in there? Because you don't generally just have somebody change, but can talk to the old one that's also there still if it's just brain damage. It would just switch. Instead, she's still able to talk to the old one, and he even says, I could hear you talking to me, and it meant so much.
All right.
So it just made me feel like there's something more to that. Do we have two people in the same body? Do we have two people from two different time periods living in the same person, or two different dimensions? Do they share a body? Or or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, it just, because she was able to, he said, I could still hear you and it meant so much to me. He said that it was like there was a light that he could almost see through. Felt like if it was just Andy still, then that wouldn't exist. That's not how it would do. The reason why I thought it also showed that he could be more than one person in there, in this, sharing the same body, because they're opposite colors, they're opposite of each other. Maybe we should look up lore around two people living in the same body who are opposites, the yin and the yang of each other, because that's what it almost feels like. Because she says, give him back, give back Andy, and then she manages to pull a piece of him, and you see the way the evil dude's face is still there, and it's got an edge on it, and then behind it on the other side, on the right-hand side, we see old Andy. So we see the two heads together, two different hair colors are there, like the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde type thing, except for they both see each other, and then she kisses that side of the head that has Andy in it, which brings on the unluck. One more way of using it as an awesome, powerful weapon, which I thought was really cool. And so that's what made me think there had to be a lot more to this idea.
Okay.
Yes, shoots him in the head. But it doesn't matter. You can shoot him in the head. It's not a very big deal.
He's pretty good at being shot in the head. It's like a...
She says, I would have been all alone again. He said, I'm sorry about that. If you touch my head, I was listening the whole time. In the darkness, after I got swallowed up by him, all I could hear was your voice, and then it shows a light coming out of that part of his head, and it made me happy. Thanks, Fuko. So it feels like he was still in there as a person, which would say he isn't the same person.
There to be more to it than just regular old run-of-the-mill brain damage. Could the card be an artifact or something made by a negator?
Yes, 100%. Shooting him in the head is important because she has to give him brain damage. Yeah, possibly, because it gives him a way to come out, to separate it again. But it would be interesting if the card...
I felt like it's brain damage, because she destroys the part that has that going on, and he back.
I think that your idea of it having to be a artifact is kind of cool. I think the idea of separating it is cool. I don't know. There's more to it. They get their quest results back, and they end up getting the ability to have another seat at the table round, an 11th person. And now they also get the ability that they have a whole galaxy around them. And then the stars that Fuko had drawn in the sky earlier when she said she just thought that the moon looked lonely and all the other planets and everything are suddenly real. And because it's an Uma, everyone who's on Earth thinks that that is just how it's always been. They also get the ability that the whole world now speaks one common language, and all the other languages disappear unless you're a negator.
Negators are immune to this, which is bad news, because now they stand out like a lot.
Because they no longer speak in the same language. Now that they're a negator, negators are easy to find. So it felt like it was this big victory, and it ended up not being this really cool victory, because there was also this huge downside.
Turns out that there are a group of people who are trying to kill negators who won't join their cause, which is bad, because that means we can't find them, and if we can't find them, we fail the quest. And it turns out if we fail the quest, the world might end. We're on 98 out of 100 punishments, right? We're receiving the...
Yes, so if we get to the maximum punishments, then that's... They think, they don't know.
It's called Ragnarok, which implies end of the world.
But isn't it wild? Like, we're joining this at the very, very end when the Earth could just stop existing, and we're like 1 or 2 away from the apocalypse, and that's when we join? I was like, okay, that's wild. Kind of expected there to be a little more time.
The series makes a lot of choices that don't feel typical, and it keeps you on your toes in a crazy way. I have rarely felt so, like, surprised by the direction. I feel like I have no good sense of where we're going, and that's crazy, because I am very good at deciphering where we're going in a narrative.
Yeah, I feel like I am too, and I was still like, oh, all right, I don't know what's next.
I'm kind of glad we chose this one for that reason, because, like, that's a unique feeling to just be like, oh, I'm lost.
I agree. I loved it. We had aliens come down, and you think, oh shit, aliens are going to be a big deal, but it was just a big enough deal for us to get the person Unjustice to
show off
go up to them and show off. Isn't it a girl?
I thought it's a dude.
It's a girl.
There's a lot of pretty men in anime. I got used to it. Oh, the design is based off of Pretty Boy from Gundam. That makes sense.
So then we go back to the table and it's like, you need to get a new person here for this 11th position, because if you don't, you're going to fail your quest and the entire world can end.
You're not even going to hear your quests.
Yeah, exactly. God, this thing is popping off fast, eh?
And apparently next chapter things get crazier, which makes sense because, again, Satan just showed up in the last chapter we read.
Yeah, so they go off. They're looking for unrepair.
Do you remember what country they go to? I can't remember what. Brazil.
They go to Brazil. What are they doing in Brazil? They're selling people.
They're selling people because it turns out there's a human auction for all sorts of weirdos, including some negators. And one of the negators is a Japanese child whose power is to make people go stop.
Unmove.
They go to save him. They're like, hey, child. But child is getting attacked because these people want him to join. And they're like, hey, join. And he's like, and they're like, you're pathetic. We're going to kill you instead. That way your power can come back in a body that isn't fucking useless. And he's like, and then they save him. We're introduced to the bad guys.
The Under. You can call them the Yunder.
They should be called the Yunder.
Yeah, the Yunder and the Onion.
The Yunder show up. They have their people. I don't remember their powers other than unrepair, honestly.
Then
the lady moves things slightly. She like tweaks projectiles. What does the big guy do again? Oh, we only know unrepair. The other ones weren't stated. I think he's unlimited because he doesn't run out of ammunition and grenades.
Yeah, that seemed to be something that he was unlimited. And I can't remember. I didn't really look at hers close enough. She didn't interest me enough until the very end, but by the very end, I just wanted to move on to the next chapter. I'm gonna have to go back and look at her. Anyway, Fuko gets an owie.
Fuko gets stabbed, and it's only a little cut, but because it was dealt by unrepair, it'll never coagulate, which is a cool way to put a lot of tension on just a little cut.
Say it will never heal until unrepair is dead.
The fight scene to catch him is pretty cool. I really like the teamwork strategy for taking him down.
I really like the chick in the ball. What's the chick in the ball's name? Tatiana. And she is so cool. You know what was really interesting though? She's untouchable. Every single one of the uns is so much like, it's so much like One Piece. I feel like I'm that person in the Magic School Bus who's like, we never went to the moon in my old school. Anyways, it's amazing how much it's linked to One Piece in the way that every person seems to have a very, very tragic, traumatic backstory that kills their family.
Oh, let me tell you, that's just anime. That's just manga.
Literally, if you're an person, I'm just sitting here waiting to find out how you killed your parents by accident.
You should, because they did.
So the person they met who was unmoved, the reason he's a chicken shit is because he accidentally kills his parents. And so they let him back. They give him a tie that lets him speak English so nobody knows he's a negator, and he gets to make a real decision. And as he's trying to make a real decision, another person comes back and makes his life a living hell. He finds out they're in this to kill God eventually, and he's like, are you freaking kidding me? I'm not really sure I want this.
And they're like, well, that's what we're doing.
And then the other cool thing is that the unrepaired dude comes back as a child. So he dies but comes back as a child. I didn't fully
the powers are supposed to reincarnate,
that.
So why he back?
Why he come back was my question. I didn't like it being he.
His plan explicitly involved killing someone to have the power reincarnate in a different person. So why he come back?
Yeah, why he get to come back is my question. I don't like it. I want another person come back, not he. We were only on chapter 30 and it was good and it was great and everyone was like, yay, chapter 30, what a great place to stop. But then in chapter 30, I had this feeling like I might want to read chapter 31, even though we weren't supposed to. I was like, oh, I forgot we weren't supposed to read chapter 31. And I did. And then Drock had to. And then he goes, all quests are now open. And I was like, what do you mean all quests are now open? These quests have the 100th penalty at stake. This round, the quests are open to everyone. Every living person on Earth will have the right to participate. Already, that is unhinged.
That is a raise of the stake.
The person who wrote this is freaking wild. They went from like, oh, we're trying to kill God, and here's what's happening before chapter 10. And then they're like, okay, now you get how this works in the Onion, and now this is happening. Just kidding. It's open to the entire goddamn world. Everyone on the Earth can participate. There are 4 quests this time. And then they name Neutralization of Uma Spring. And you're like, what the shit is an Uma Spring?
I mean, my guess is it's a metal coil that can store kinetic potential.
No, it's devil. And then deadline, December 31st. Reward, the location of negator unchange. What? So the new unchange.
Yeah.
Neutralization of Uma summer, capturing of Uma autumn, and neutralization of Uma winter. Why is it
autumn capture?
Yes, why is goddamn autumn capture and all the other ones are neutralized?
So many questions immediately.
And so you're like, are you telling me that there was no such thing as seasons before and the earth was all supposed to be one temperature and we were supposed to have not a single season except for this kind of season of one sort of temperature, and the temperature was like...
Those got added in at some point, but like we don't know when, yeah.
So why are you wiping out the goddamn season suddenly? And the penalty will be the addition of Uma Revolution? What is it? And then I'm like, do you mean revolving around the sun? Because then it shows the pathway of planets suddenly.
Oh.
And you're like, are we not revolving right now?
But that's so difficult because like this is written in Japanese. I feel like the uns are made with the assumption of English from what I can tell, but we don't know if like the Uma names are. I did not take a close look at the image because I read this very quickly before stream because I've been
Did you notice the trajectory of the revolution? But look at it. Oh, is the revolution to revolve it into the sun? It is. It's so that you go around until you revolve into the sun. So it is Uma Revolution, revolving around the sun into the sun. And that's the final way that it gets popped off. So people outside of the round table are free to enter. How do they know? How do these people know that they're free to enter, and how are they going to tell them? That's one of the questions I asked right away. Like, how is the entire Earth going to find out that it's allowed to? Are we suddenly going to tell them? Is there going to be an announcement?
Hey, everybody, we need to kill the magical concept of summer and winter. Otherwise, the world dies.
Yeah, and then it's like, we must unite our non-roundtable members to complete these quests. Mind if I jump in here? What is it? Billy. The book says that these quests hold the 100th penalty. I don't think completing them is going to be easy. If some of us wind up dead before we even get a shot at the 101st penalty, then that seals the deal in our defeat. 3 out of 4 need to be neutralized. If we can kill them, we're good. So why don't we just drop a few nukes on them? And then everyone just sits there like,
Billy,
what? What are you talking about, Billy? Billy, maybe not. We could lose our lives. But wouldn't that be the only thing we'd lose? You're too naive, Juice. Billy is just like, you can do what you want, baby, but I might, drop some bombs. Don't do it. Don't do it. And so they've had to kill Billy, which is not great.
Or did
they? Unfair. So don't you agree?
He repairs his body and gets up, right? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah, and then he stands in the middle of the table, and the entire table becomes Ultra Demon Rock Hand. I'll be taking the round table. Pardon me? What the shit kind of manga is this? The manga is, okay, these are the things that are going to happen. Now you know what's going on. It's the property of Under now. The one who will kill God is me. So Under comes in. He's here. Under is now just, I don't know, stolen the entire concept that we thought we were working with. It's so crazy.
So much happened so quickly.
It's so crazy.
And apparently next chapter is the one that shifts everything in a major way, not this one.
Yeah, so someone told me, do not read on, Mama. If you read on, you will now be in a completely different manga. This is where you need to stop.
Crazy. These last couple chapters, I have so little idea how to process. It's crazy.
And it's so exciting because I'm like, now what the hell is going to happen? If they're taking the table underneath, are those round table people underneath going to be an opposite of the people who are on the top? Or are they all going to be like, does every undead person on the top have the same type of undead person below? Or like, you know what I mean? Like, is there an unmove, unlock, blah, 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 or is there only one of each of those things? I don't know.
I'm going to pull a Fuko and add her weird stars because the moon looks lonely because I don't like the look of this black void.
So 2 things. Hey, YouTube, we're drawing out. If you would like to press subscribe, it'd be awesome. We found out that some of our people were no longer getting notifications when we were coming on.
That's true.
You should press like.
You can always join the Discord and then I will announce to you every time there's a stream happening.
Especially when Red Potato gets pissed off and says, hey, where the hell is the announcement of the time schedule for the streams happening? When we get to 20,000, Drock is doing a reluctant as hell. Mama's forcing him to become Luffy's Gear 5.
Yeah, but you don't have a cloud sash.
I don't need a cloud sash. I've got a white sheet that we're tying around you. If you want to send us any cards or stickers or your life's hopes and dreams or a recipe that your grandma made and you're really excited to share it with us, make sure that it only is fish or no meat. Drock and I are both pescatarians. and sent it to this address. It's on the screen. Ooh, shiny.
It's been did.
Okay, so do you want to do a top 5?
Top 5 characters. So we're doing this together now, like it's a movie.
I say that Fuko is number 1.
Fuko number 1.
Do
Fuko
it.
forever.
Would you keep Fuko at number 1?
Fuko
Do you think we have
forever.
to? Do you think we have to agree, or do you think we could do our own?
I think we do a contentious one that we're doing together and won't necessarily be accurate because we're going to disagree.
Okay, I like it. Then in that case, I think Andy is number 2.
Well, I mean, I should go next because you did the first one.
Okay, go ahead.
I think Andy should be number 2.
You're killing me. For me, number 5 is Untouchable.
Interesting. Monkey Man number 3.
Oh,
People have told me his name is Shen, so I'm going to say, it, with all due respect, Monkey Man number 3.
so I'm gonna pick 4. I'm gonna pick this chick,
Gina.
Gina. I just think,
wanna
even
pick
though
6.
she didn't stay in as long, she had a major impact for me, and
I'll
she
say
changed.
she's one of the 2 top drip for sure, even with her dumb hat.
She absolutely is. She changed the way that I viewed the manga. Okay, top drip. I'm gonna say Monkey Man.
Monkey Man and Gina.
I think we should have to argue it in the future. It should be an
I mean, if we
argument.
disagree, but I agree.
Yeah, I agreed with all yours too.
I kind of like Andy's
I was happy with
invincible
them.
suit too.
I would have put Andy's invincible suit on the top 5, I think, somewhere.
Yeah, if we
Maybe
had, like,
even
a
in the
top
5th.
5 list of drip. Yeah.
Favorite minor character. Mine is Clothy.
Lothy is a great minor character. Mine is probably realistically it's actually Zombie Lady, but it's funnier if I say toddler with a gun.
Toddler with a gun in it. Young American. It's a young American. What are we reading up to next? 56 it is. I really hope you read along with us. I gotta tell you,
Okay.
chat, before I go, I started off petulant, moody, and unrepentive. And in the end, I decided I was wrong. This is a really fun manga, and it's super, super brilliantly written. Now I was like, I want to read the next chapter.
No.
Undrock Mom Luck.
I feel like the dead is needed for the...
You're
the
wrong,
habits
it
phonetic.
doesn't.
Knowing where the bus is going and hearing you go off is one thing, but like if I am a co-passenger on this trip with you and you start going off like that, it's like, ooh. I was all ready for what we were doing, and then all of a sudden, Satan.
It was unexpected. I think I'm gonna like this thing. I could get into the
All right,
Yeah.
everybody, we're gonna try this. I've been Drock the Unfiltered,
And I've been Mama Drock the Unhinged.
and until next time,
Squish on squishies.
it's been lovely drocking to you.
Okay.
I
I
like
l-
plants when they are scary. Mushrooms don't count.
Thank you.